The train station smelled like rain on concrete and strangers' perfume. Distant echoes of footsteps bounced off the tiled walls. People brushed past me, their voices threading the air like soft static. None of them knew I could hear them now. Not again. Not yet. I stood still. A red scarf was wrapped tightly around my neck, the ends fluttering in the wind like nervous fingers. I didn't need it, not really. It was July, but I clung to it anyway. It had been in my coat pocket the day I went deaf, balled up next to a pack of gum and a receipt from a Chinese restaurant. I'd nearly thrown it out. He hadn't noticed I wore it again today. He stood about 10 feet away from me, my husband, facing the payphone. Not the modern kind. The kind that eats quarters and secrets. He kept glancing over his shoulder, but not at me. Past me. Through me. His hand gripped the receiver like it might run from him. His other hand trembled, just once. He pressed it to his chest, like the words were heavier than he'd expected. I knew that gesture. I had stood in our kitchen 2 weeks ago, watching him do the same thing when he thought I was asleep. At the time, the silence around me was still complete, a dark room with no windows. I'd watched his lips move but heard nothing. I had tried to guess, was it grief? Was it guilt? Was it just a headache? Now, I didn't have to guess. Yeah, he said into the phone, voice low, almost swallowed by the passing train. She's still deaf. 4 weeks. I'm trying, Mom. I am. But this isn't what I signed up for. The red scarf felt like a noose suddenly, warm and suffocating. I can't talk to her, he continued. It's like she's not even in the room. He stopped, ran his hand through his hair, then leaned against the cold glass of the phone booth. I miss being heard. He paused. A mother holding her child rushed past me. The boy's balloon caught in the wind and slipped from his fingers. Red. It floated upward, fast, like something escaping. I didn't move. My small suitcase rested beside me, one wheel crooked, leaning like it had grown tired of waiting. I watched his reflection in the smeared glass. I'm not saying I'm leaving, he said finally. But I need to feel like a man again. Not a nurse. Not a translator. A man. Silence returned, louder than anything I had ever heard. He hung up. The receiver dangled from its cord for a moment before he placed it back, carefully. He didn't look around this time. He didn't see me standing there, didn't notice how I shifted my grip on the handle of the suitcase or how my breath trembled as I tried not to make a sound, still playing deaf, even now. My hearing had returned 4 days ago. I had heard every word he said since then. But he didn't know that. No one did. And I wasn't ready to give that part of me back. Not yet. Not until I knew if what I'd lost was worse than what I'd found. The scarf fluttered again. I touched it gently, like it might answer the question burning at the back of my throat. His mother's voice still echoed in my mind from yesterday's call, the one he made from our bedroom when he thought I was out on a walk. Maybe it's a sign, she had whispered. Maybe it's her body giving you a way out. A way out. His laugh then had been low. Tired. Almost grateful. Now, in this moment, I watched him walk past me like I wasn't even there. His coat brushed my arm. His eyes didn't blink. And I still said nothing. But inside me, something had cracked. Quietly. Irreparably. The train had long pulled away, its sound trailing off like the end of a song you didn't realize you'd memorized. I stood there long after the platform cleared, my suitcase still leaning, the red scarf twisted now in my fist. I could feel the weave of the wool pressing into my palm, its familiar scratch. He hadn't turned back once. A father was lifting his daughter onto his shoulders near the far end of the platform. She had braids and freckles and a missing front tooth. "We found you," she yelled, arms flung wide like wings. The mother laughed as she ran up behind them, dropping a tote bag to wrap all three of them in a clumsy hug. I watched them like someone watching their reflection behind glass. My eyes stung, but nothing fell. I remembered another station, years ago. A colder day. My father, hunched by the ticket machine, turning my childhood suitcase right side up again. That suitcase had daisies on it, peeling from the corners. We'd found it secondhand. He'd said, "Don't worry how it looks. It'll get you there just the same." But it hadn't, had it? This one wasn't floral. It was gray. Hard shell. A gift from my husband when I started applying for jobs outside the city. "You'll need something real now," he'd said. I remember how proud I was that day. Like I was finally becoming someone. Like he was proud of me too. But it turned out, when I stopped needing help, he stopped looking at me like I was his. The red scarf had been from a street vendor in Prague. It wasn't supposed to mean anything. We'd laughed when I picked it up. He said it made me look dramatic. But it was the only thing I wore the day the sound disappeared, when the ringing turned to silence in one long, terrifying second. After that, it became mine in a different way. Every day after the deafness came, I'd fold it neatly over my lap, as if that bit of fabric could anchor me to something solid. It was absurd. But so was waking up in a world without sound and pretending you still belonged in it. I'd tried. I learned to read his lips. I watched his hands more than his eyes. I smiled when he joked, even when I caught only pieces. He never knew how hard I tried. Or maybe he did, and it bored him. I turned slowly now, one step at a time, the suitcase wheels clicking on the concrete like a broken metronome. And that's when I noticed him. A man I hadn't seen before. Sitting on the bench at the edge of the platform. Older. Quiet. His face worn, not in a tired way, but in the way things were from being used gently over time. He didn't smile. He didn't speak. He just watched me. Not in the way some men do, no hunger, no pity. It was like he saw something and wasn't sure yet what it meant. Like I was a sentence missing its last word. I hesitated. Was it my scarf he noticed? Or the way my grip on it trembled now and then? Maybe he'd seen us, my husband and I, and the way we didn't quite orbit each other anymore. Maybe he'd heard the call too, the rawness of it. Or maybe he was just a man on a bench who recognized a woman trying too hard not to cry. I didn't look back again. But I didn't move forward either. My hand lingered on the handle of my suitcase. The scarf slipped from my fingers, caught in a gust, and danced across the platform like it had somewhere else to be. I took one step after it. Then stopped. The man on the bench leaned forward slightly. Not to chase it. Not to catch it. Just to watch what I would do next. Rain began without warning. A soft tapping at first, like fingers drumming on glass, then harder, sharp drops slicing through the heat like regret. The red scarf, now soaked, clung to the iron railing near the bench, limp and abandoned. I didn't go to it. I wasn't sure it was still mine. The man hadn't moved. He sat still as stone, his coat thinning at the elbows, shoes scuffed raw at the toes. Not the kind of worn you'd get from age, but from walking too far in shoes meant for someone else's life. Rain darkened the fabric across his shoulders. He didn't flinch. Something about that made me stay. I shifted closer under the station awning, letting my suitcase bump quietly against the bench leg. He glanced at me once. Just once. Then back to the tracks. Still no smile. Still that silence. It was the kind that didn't ask for anything. It just waited. A plastic wallet poked from his inside coat pocket, unbuttoned now from the wind. It flapped open slightly with each gust, and just beneath the fold, I saw the edge of a faded photo. A boy, maybe 6 or 7. Grinning wide. Front teeth missing, arms around a man I guessed was him, only younger. Standing in front of a rusted truck, the kind that didn't move anymore but still sat proudly in someone's driveway. I looked away before he caught me staring. I didn't want to intrude. But it already felt like I had. A crack of thunder rolled low in the distance, so far it could have been a memory. The man's hand curled slowly on his thigh. Like a reflex. Like someone remembering what fists are for, but not ready to use one. My thoughts crowded too loudly in my chest. He doesn't know you can hear him. He never will, unless you say it. Unless you force it. But I wasn't sure I wanted to. Because knowing what he said when he thought I couldn't hear, that was one truth. But knowing what he'd say once he could lie again, that was another. The stranger suddenly spoke. His voice was rough, but low. Measured. Like a note held too long. You waiting for someone? I hesitated. Not anymore. He nodded like that made sense. Silence again. But a different kind. I turned to him. You? A pause. He reached into his coat, pulled the wallet the rest of the way out, and set it in his lap. Fingers lingered on the photo. Used to. The rain thickened. Water pooled along the edge of the platform, rippling as trains passed in the distance. People rushed by, umbrellas bobbing, shoes splashing, the sounds of departure filling in the places my heart wanted to stay quiet. I found myself staring at the photo again. He yours? I asked, softer than I meant to. The man's jaw tightened. Then loosened. Was. He didn't explain. He didn't have to. We sat like that. Strangers in name. Witnesses in silence. Somewhere beneath my ribs, something shifted. Not sympathy. Not connection. Just recognition. That invisible mirror. The one that shows you not what you are, but what you're afraid you might become. I looked down at my suitcase. Still zipped. Still untouched. I could go. I should go. But my feet wouldn't. Because for the first time in weeks, someone had asked me a question I didn't have to pretend not to hear. And he didn't look away when I answered. I opened my mouth. Closed it. He looked at me then, really looked. And I wondered, was this fate? Or had I just walked into someone else's silence to escape my own? The scarf fluttered again in the rain, a streak of red against gray stone. Still neither of us moved. The rain had slowed to a mist, soft enough to hear breath between drops. People still moved with urgency, heads down, coats pulled tight, not from cold, but habit. No one wanted to be seen lingering in places built for leaving. I stood. My fingers gripped the suitcase handle so hard, the ache traveled up my arm like a warning. Go, I whispered to myself. One step. Just one. I could disappear into the crowd, board a train to nowhere in particular, let motion carry me where courage failed. I took that step. Then another. And then I stopped. The scarf was no longer on the railing. It was in his hands. The man. Still on the bench. Holding it like something delicate, not something he'd picked up out of pity, but something he recognized. Like he understood how it was mine in ways I hadn't told anyone. He didn't wave it. Didn't call out. He just sat there, cradling the scarf in both palms like a memory you're not sure you deserve to keep. Something in my chest crumpled inward. I turned back, not all the way. Just enough to catch him in the corner of my vision. He looked up. Our eyes met. He didn't smile. But he nodded. A gesture that held more than I could name. I felt something wet trail down my cheek. Not rain. I'm fine, I muttered. A lie. Sharp and tired. Behind me, a mother tugged her child away from the puddle we shared. She looked at me once, tight mouth, quick glance. Not unkind, just dismissive. The way people look at women alone in public places, holding bags too small for a return trip and eyes too full for conversation. Some people carry more than just bags. They carry silence. They carry the version of themselves they couldn't save. The man finally spoke again. You dropped this, he said quietly, holding the scarf out, not offering, not assuming. Just placing it back in the world between us. I walked to him. I didn't take it. It never really belonged to me, I said. My voice cracked. It was just the only thing that stayed when everything else left. He nodded like he knew what that felt like. Like he'd once clung to a photograph in the rain and called it home. I used to wear something red too, he said. I waited. Her favorite color. After she was gone, I kept the tie. Carried it in my coat pocket until the color faded. Even then, I couldn't let it go. The scarf lay across his lap now, like a story too heavy to fold. Thunder rolled again, farther off this time. Distant, like something retreating. My knees nearly gave. I sat beside him without thinking. I heard him, I finally said. My husband. On the phone. I was supposed to be deaf. He didn't look surprised. I didn't explain further. You don't want to go back, he said gently. I shook my head. But I don't know where else to go. He tilted his head toward the platform, toward the constant motion, the trains and the lives and the people who pretend they're fine. Maybe don't go anywhere, he said. Just stop running. I stared at the scarf again. It's red now, richer, darker with rain. No longer wrapped around my neck. No longer hiding anything. We didn't speak again for a long time. A conductor passed by, glanced at us. Hesitated. Ma'am, your train? I didn't answer. The man beside me did. She's waiting for someone. The conductor nodded slowly, gave a look I couldn't read. Pity, maybe. Or confusion. Or maybe he understood something even I didn't. The scarf was still between us. I didn't take it back. Not yet. Not until I knew who I was without it. The scarf was heavier now that I knew what it meant. Or thought I did. But truth doesn't settle quietly. Not when it arrives dressed as coincidence. He stood when I finally rose, his hands brushing raindrops from his sleeves as if preparing for something formal. I nearly reached for the scarf again, nearly reclaimed what I'd abandoned, but something in his stillness stopped me. I let silence settle instead. I never got your name, I said, almost shyly. He didn't offer it. Instead, he reached into his coat, pulled out the wallet again, and slipped something from behind the photograph. A folded card. Cream-colored. Embossed with a company logo I knew too well. Sable and Finch. My breath caught. That was the Sable and Finch. The one I'd applied to last month, the dream job. The one I'd interviewed for over video calls with captions on and lights dimmed so they wouldn't see how tired I looked. The one I hadn't heard back from. He held the card loosely, like it was nothing. I know what you're thinking, he said. But I didn't lie. You didn't say anything. You didn't ask. I stared at the logo, heart pounding. You're with them? He hesitated. I am them. My lips parted, but no words came. It all reassembled in my mind, his quiet, the careful way he watched, the deliberate pauses. Not just a man in a rain-washed coat. Not just a grieving father on a bench. He was him, James Finch. Co-founder. The ghost I'd chased for months on LinkedIn, never once imagining I'd find him here, alone with a photograph and my scarf. I felt the floor shift beneath me. Not literally. Worse. Emotionally. You knew who I was? I asked. No, he said, and I believed him. Not until now. I believed that too. And yet. I couldn't breathe properly. I thought of my husband's voice again. I miss being heard. A loop in my brain, echoing louder now. And then I thought of my father at that station years ago, telling me the bag didn't matter as long as it got me there. But maybe it wasn't about the bag. Maybe it was about where I thought I was going. You said the scarf meant something, I murmured. Red. Your daughter. He nodded. It was hers. She lost it here, on this very platform. She was only 6. I kept it. Until I couldn't. The weight of the scarf returned to my hands without warning. He'd placed it there while I wasn't looking. She would have liked you, he said. She didn't speak much either. But when she did, people listened. Tears rose like a tide I didn't give permission to. I don't know who I am right now, I whispered. He looked at me carefully. Then said, most people never do. But silence has a way of introducing you to yourself. That line curled in my chest like fire. I clutched the scarf tighter. There was no going back. Not to the apartment. Not to the man whose voice I had heard too clearly. Not to the version of myself who waited for permission to feel whole. I turned, gripping the suitcase, the scarf looped once more around my hand, not as armor, but as a reminder. Of what I'd lost. Of what I'd found. Of what might still be mine. He didn't follow. He didn't have to. The hallway of Sable and Finch's regional office sat just beyond the corner coffee stand. I'd walked past it once, weeks ago, never thinking I'd be brave enough to walk in. Today, I did. Dripping, shaking, scarred and silent, I stepped through the glass door into a lobby of clean lines and cold light. A receptionist looked up, startled. Can I help you? I nodded once. I think you already are. The lobby was too quiet. Clean light buzzed overhead, humming in that sterile way that makes even confidence feel exposed. I stood soaked in front of the receptionist, scarf heavy in my hands, suitcase at my feet like a discarded past. I'm here to speak with Mr. Finch, I said. Her brows lifted. Do you have an appointment? No, I said softly. But I think he's expecting me. I didn't know if that was true. But it felt true. And for once, that was enough. She hesitated, picked up the phone, whispered something. A pause. Then, he said, send you up. The elevator ride stretched like a held breath. My reflection in the mirrored doors looked older somehow, rain-matted hair, hollow eyes, scarf clutched to my chest like a child's blanket. Silence has a way of introducing you to yourself, he'd said. Now I knew what he meant. His office was minimalist. A desk. A window framing the city like a painting too expensive to touch. He stood when I entered, no jacket this time, just a black shirt rolled at the sleeves and a look that wasn't quite surprise. More like resolution. I set the scarf on the desk. You forgot this, I said. I didn't forget, he replied, stepping closer. I let it go. His eyes drifted to the red fabric, a softness in them I hadn't seen before. Not grief. Not nostalgia. Something quieter. Forgiveness, maybe. I know who you are now, I said. But I still don't know why you sat beside me. Why you watched me. Why you didn't speak first. He picked up the scarf carefully, folded it once. Because you looked like someone I lost, he said. Not her face. Her stillness. The way she held things inside. I recognized it. He looked up. I didn't help you for love, or even kindness. I helped you because I owed the universe a debt. And you looked like a chance to repay it. I felt something in me exhale. Not disappointment. Not quite. But a shift. So I was just a mirror. No, he stepped around the desk. You were more than that. Mirrors only reflect what's there. You reminded me there's still something left. He handed the scarf back. But I didn't take it. I don't need it anymore, I said. He nodded, then placed it on the windowsill, where the rain outside could light it like stained glass. Your husband, he said gently. What will you do? I already did it, I replied. I left. He nodded once. And your future? I hesitated. Then opened my suitcase. Pulled out a folder, the one with my resume, my letters, the printed application to the job I'd once begged to be seen for. I slid it across the desk. This is who I was trying to become, I said. But I don't want to be hired out of pity. I want to earn it. He scanned the folder. Quiet. You're already past the interview, he said. But the question is, can you lead, even after being unheard? My reply came without pause. I think I can. Because now, I know what it's like to hear what people don't say. Something broke open between us, an understanding, not a promise. I walked out minutes later, suitcase lighter, scarf left behind like shed skin. The receptionist watched me go. Something in her eyes changed, like she recognized a woman walking out whole. Back at the train station, the sky had begun to clear. A little girl ran past me, her balloon slipping free and floating upward, red against the sky. She laughed. And I laughed too. Quiet, startled, real. I stood where I had begun, only this time, I wasn't watching someone leave. I was the one departing. Not from the world. From the silence. From the version of me who thought survival was the same as living. And as the train doors opened with that soft, familiar sigh, I stepped in, alone. But not empty.